Hello everyone and welcome to the big clash between two 2700 plus youngsters. It's Vincent, Keymer versus Nodirbek, Abdusattorov. Both of them had a sort of an accident early on in the tournament. Nodirbek lost in round 1 to Anton Korobov. Okay, you can't really call that an accident. Anyone can lose to Anton Korobov. But as favorites going into that round, I guess you could call it an accident. So Nodirbek lost Korobov in round 1 and Vincent lost the Women's World Champion Ju Wenjun in round 4. So of course now as this is round 6, Peter Svidler and Arjun Ergesi have drawn their game. Of course both of them want to win to catch up to the leaders. So let's check it out. It's a very nice game, very tactical one. You guys will enjoy this. Vincent with white opens with knight to f3. We have pawn to d5, e3, knight to f6, and pawn to c4. So some sort of a Reti setup here. We have pawn to c6, transposing into the Karo Khan against the English, and now knight to c3. We have pawn to a6 and pawn to d4. Now it's the chameleon variation of the Slav defense. We have pawn to b5 and pawn to b3, preparing to fianchetto the dark square bishop. We have bishop to g4 and pawn to a4, striking against that b5 pawn. So b captures on c4. B captures and knight b to d7. We have bishop to e2, and there is an interesting game. Ding Liren played with white against Peter Svidler, but in that game Svidler captured on f3, and Ding defeated Svidler in that game. But here we have pawn to e6, pawn to c5, closing the structure, grabbing more space here, and now pawn to a5. If pawn to a5 lands from white, and then let's say you put something on, let's say a5, knight to a4, knight to b6, this is unplayable for black. So pawn to a5, we have castles, and sorry, not king f1. We have castles and bishop to e7. And here there is a game where bishop to d2 was played, but here we have just knight to e1, offering a trade of light square bishops, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. So okay, bishop captures on e2, queen captures, and now it doesn't matter if you capture with the queen or with the knight. Nodirbek's next move is the same, pawn to e5. We have knight to d3, Vincent inviting pawn to e4, but Nodirbek captures on d4. Now it's very hard not to make this e4 move. Again, I often say that even if it's the strongest move recommended by the engine, but sometimes you have to be an incredibly strong player not to play the strongest move, because maybe the strongest move results in a position that's easier to play for your opponent. Maybe this one is more complicated, but yeah, if this was played, let's say knight to f4, you get this excellent square for your knight. Let's say castles, but then f3, and already black might be in some trouble here. Even g captures, you stop the knight from entering the game. You can play king h1, double rooks on the g file, so this becomes a very attacking game. So Nodirbek doesn't want to give that to Vincent. He plays e captures on d4, e captures, and just castles kingside. Now pawn to f3 again to control the knight, and rook to e8. Now threatening bishop captures on c5 as the queen is on e2. So Vincent moves the queen, and now knight to f8, remaneuvering the knight over to e6. We have knight to e2 and knight 6 to d7 first. We have pawn to f4. With some ideas of planting a knight on e5, but also maybe f5 can be played. The knight coming to g3 to add additional support. So knight to e6, and now bishop to b2. F5 here would be a bit premature, because then you just give up the g5 square to Nodirbek's knight. So here bishop to b2, and okay, rook to b8 is definitely a move. You can play that, but Nodirbek starts with queen to c8. We have knight to g3, gaining more space here, gaining control over the f5 and h5 squares, and rook to b8. Now we have rook 8 to e1. Now with an idea of planting a knight on f5, putting pressure on that bishop on e7. Also, if the bishop moves somewhere weird, then even knight coming to d6 is an option. But maybe knight to f5 should have been played before rook to e1. Now Nodirbek just plays bishop to h4, and the knight can no longer move to f5. So pawn to f5 by Vincent, knight to g5, and now rook captures, queen captures, and the bishop back to c1. If you go rook to e1, which looks like a nice way to win the e-file, just knight e4, so it doesn't really do anything. So instead, bishop to c1, and now knight to e4. Here, if you don't move the knight, you might even consider a bishop captures just to prevent knight coming to e4, but also very unlikely because then the other knight comes to e4, so you're just giving up a strong bishop. So knight to e4, we have bishop to f4 with an attack on the rook here, rook b7, and now knight to h5. Vincent trying to put some nasty pressure against the Nodirbek's king. Pawn to g6, knight back to g3, and knight captures on g3. We have h captures attacking the bishop, bishop to f6, and now queen to c3. Seemingly attacking the a5 pawn, but really just defending the d4 pawn. And it's not going to be easy to defend it. We have queen to e4. Already Nodirbek piles up on the pawn, threatens to win it, not just the pawn, but also the queen here. So bishop to e5, you have to stop that, and now queen to e3 check first. We have king h2, and the bishop captures on e5. D captures on e5, and now pawn to d4, cutting off the queen from defending the d5 pawn. Queen to c4, and now Nodirbek just picks up the pawn. We have knight captures, queen captures, and queen to a6, attacking the a5 pawn, and the rook. Vincent is now down a pawn, so he has to win material back, but queen to c7 defends everything. And now, okay, Vincent is down a pawn, but still a very interesting position. And with a move like f captures on g6, he's still very much in the game. For example, captures, and rook f6. This looks very nice. However, Vincent played pawn to f6. He thought that this pressure on the g7 square, and maybe just bringing your queen over to h6 will be enough to have at least a draw. But Nodirbek plays pawn to h5, and now this gives up the h7 square to the black king, and makes all of this queen to h6 nonsense not really viable. So queen back to e2, and now just queen to d8. You could also play pawn to h4 right away, but yeah, if you do this, then the idea was queen to e8 with check, and then you just go queen to f8, and it's game over. You have to resign. Even with a nice queen captures on g3 check, there's just no more moves you can play with black. You're getting checkmated on the next move. So that's why we have queen to d8 by Nodirbek, and now queen to e4. So putting pressure on black's king side. Also g4 is the idea. Rook to c7, also defending the c6 pawn, and now queen to f4. Putting pressure on the rook and also preparing queen to h6. The problem is it just doesn't do anything. But the other problem is this was Vincent's 40th move, so he has reached time control. He played it with less than a minute on the clock, and Nodirbek doesn't want to invest too much time calculating d3. It is winning, but you have to go into a queen and pawn endgame. I will just show it real quickly. Like d3, queen h6 threatens checkmate. Queen to f8 stops checkmate. You're going to bring the queen back. Now rook d7, you defend the pawn. And after rook f3, going after the pawn, queen captures on c5. And okay, now you trade everything, captures, and captures. But after queen d5, the c pawn marching forward is enough to win the game, with perfect play. So after queen f4, king to h7, just stopping queen h6 and saying, okay, let's continue the game. But now Vincent has enough to play for a draw, g4, or even a win. I mean, it's still a very complicated position. Rook to d7, further preparing to advance the passed pawn and also getting the rook off of that c7 square. Rook to e1. Here, g captures on h5. The move that you really want to play is just not enough, because after queen to c7, the queens come off the board, and there's no way to do anything more here. Like captures, you're going to play king g3, but now rook d7, and there's no good way to cross the f-file. Okay, you could even play king f3. Black is never in a rush to capture this, like d3, king e3, d2. Now you have to block with rook to d1. Then the king captures, and while you do get to take the pawn here, and it's equal material, it's not equal material for long. Like king e5, king to c3, king to d5, and the pawn comes off on the next move. And then with 3 against 2, you will be completely winning. So yeah, g captures on h5, not the best here. Rook to e1 is the best, what Vincent goes for, but I mean, look at this. Queen to f8, going after the c5 pawn, and now Vincent just defended it with rook to e5. The real move that keeps Vincent in the game is rook to e7. That's how you should play it, and then just after captures, you capture on h5. And then after d3, you capture here as well, and yes, you will always be down a queen, down a pawn, let's say queen d4, pawn to d2. Okay, now we trade, captures, but the black king is now wide in the open, so even though you're down a pawn, you will have sufficient space to continue checking that black king. But okay, even, you know, in practical terms, black probably wins this more than it's a draw. However, rook to e5 was played here, but here Vincent just missed one very simple idea that Nodirbek has that allows him to you know, eliminate any and all counterplay from Vincent. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this idea that Vincent missed while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on figuring out this crazy position. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is H captures on G4. Yes, without H captures on G6, there is not sufficient counterplay for Vincent. Point being that queen captures attacks the rook, just rook back to d8, and queen to e4, now maybe threatening, well, you're not threatening anything. Maybe if black plays a silly move like queen h8, you can win with rook h5, but other than that, yeah, chances of Nodirbek falling for that one are very slim. So queen h6 check, king to g1, and just pawn to d3. The passed pawn is now much too strong. We have queen to c4 going after the f7 pawn, but just king to g8, Nodirbek defense. We have queen to e4 now with some threats of rook e8, but it's not really a threat. Pawn to d2, rook to e8 with check. We have rook captures, and queen to f8. And he was in this position on move 50 that Vincent Keymer resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Of course, you cannot trade queens. The d pawn is unstoppable. The king is too far away to stop the pawn. And if you try something like queen d7 to go after the pawn, well, then queen captures on c5 comes with check. That's a huge problem. And now it doesn't matter. If you go to h2, it's just a matter of queen h5 check, and then you promote because the d1 square is covered. And if you go the other way around, let's say king f1, then it's a simple matter of queen to c1 check, king to e2, queen to e1 check, king f3. You bring a queen into the game with check, white is forced to trade, captures, and okay, now you're up a queen. Of course, everyone can win this easily. Yeah, after queen to f8, Vincent resigned, and a well-deserved victory for Nodirbek Abdusattorov. It will be a well-deserved victory for either of them, but Nodirbek is the one that won. And here are the standings after the initial 6 rounds have been played. So Svidler and Arjun Erigaisi, Peter Svidler and Arjun Erigaisi still in the lead as they have drawn their 6th round game. Also with Anton Korovov, 3 of them on 4 points. With 3.5 now, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, Vincent on 3, Women's World Champion Ju Wenjun on 2.5, Niels Grandelius on 1.5, alongside Mark Andrea Maurizio, the World Junior Champion, also on 1.5. So yeah, very exciting tournament. Peter Svidler doing excellent on his way to winning it 2nd time in a row. We'll see if he's able to do it, or will someone else have something else to say about it. But for the moment, he's playing some incredible chess. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Michael Hildebrand, Steve Schwartz, Casey Jones, Johan Hoibai, and Lorenzo Tessiore for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.